Everybody who put this event together. As a lot of you know, it takes a lot of guts to even talk about Scientology, much less come to their fucking playground and be walking around flipping off Mickey Mouse at Disneyland. Is pretty much what it feels like out here. So thanks to everybody who had the bravery to show their face, come out and have their stories heard. So give yourselves a round of applause. So some of what I'm going to read today is some stuff that you may already know, some stuff you have not heard. I don't think the world has heard per se. Some of this is also for the internet. I also want to dedicate everything I'm about to do to the parasitic private detectives who have been following all of us for days. Fuck you forever. And please investigate who the fuck you're following and ask some more questions and investigate your masters. That's for you. All right, so this piece here, I get asked a lot about what it's like to be the great-grandson of L. Ron Hubbard, and so I wrote a piece about it, sort of a rough draft, but I'm going to read it anyways, so fuck it. It's about my childhood hero and someone who became my adult hero. It's called In the Blood. In an empty theater in Vancouver, Canada, I'm about to meet the man who discovered my family's most dangerous secrets. He arrives with 2 men for security and tells me our enemies already know I'm here. He says they track flights and have dossiers prepared to destroy me, and he should know. He's been beaten, sued into silence, banished from our country. If he says my great-grandfather's name out loud in America, it's a $50,000 fine. If he sets foot in the States again, he wins a jail sentence. His name is Jerry Armstrong. This man has been hunted and haunted ever since he found my great-grandfather's box of secrets. He's met 4 generations of my family, but I'm the last descendant who wants to hear about my childhood hero, L. Ron Hubbard. When I was a kid, L. Ron Hubbard had his own bookshelf in my room. His neon name glowed off spines with covers full of laser gun-armed aliens and rocket ships blasting into space. He was my greatest inspiration. I'd type on my knees until my mom said lights out, and I'd fall asleep dreaming of one day having my own stories next to his. My mother would tell me that writing was in my blood, and I'd ask her, well, why didn't great-grandpa Ron show up at Christmas like Grandpa Ken? She told me he was busy writing like me. I'd imagine him working on his next novel in a dark cabin somewhere. The only stories I knew of his were the ones on my bookshelf. My mother said the Bible had all the answers I would ever need. In the 3rd grade, I stood with Pastor Pete from my church on a street corner, passing out pamphlets, begging strangers to convert to my God. At the end of the day, he gave me a dog-eared book on cults, saying these were our enemies and I needed to know them. I read about Mansons, Moonies, and Mormons before I turned the page and saw the word kept from me my entire life, Scientology. And above it was my great-grandfather, L. Ron Hubbard, founder, leader, reincarnated savior. I never heard this story, the one he told the world. He was raised on a huge cattle ranch, blood brother of Indians, travel of the Orient, nuclear physicist, screenwriter, CIA agent, submarine commander, barnstorm, machine gun in the back and blinded in World War II, resurrected to sight by his own studies of the mind, scientist, and last glimmer of hope in a dying world. My 8-year-old mind thought, Jesus, water-walking Christ, I'm related to the most amazing man on earth! And he was still alive! I could find him. Just like my neighbor's cat and my runaway hamster Tigger, I could find him. That day I asked my mom about Scientology for the first time. She dropped the plate, peeked through the curtains and asked me, where'd you hear that word, honey? Has someone been following you? I showed her Pastor Pete's book and begged to meet this amazing man so I could ask him all about his submarines and rocket ships and how I could learn to write like him. She told me he hadn't been seen in a long time. Some people don't want to be found, she said. That night I went to bed angry. I didn't understand why I wouldn't want to meet his biggest fan. I just wanted to hear his stories from his own lips. He died when I was 9 years old, before I could ever ask him anything. Today, when I say his name out loud, people laugh or their eyes widen. His name has become a funhouse mirror, an author who wrote his own empire. They ask if I'm making it up. Why the fuck would I? There are 10 million other outlaws I'd rather be related to. My lineage has never gotten me laid or ever gotten me a date. Not even here, believe me. Pretty sure to ex-members, any other member or association with L. Ron Hubbard is the last fucking thing they want to take them. My lineage has never got me a date. Now he's a Tom Cruise pop culture reference, a South Park joke. But in my family, he's not a John Travolta punchline. He's something to bury, a whisper in the back rooms to be kept from the kids. After decades of slamming the door on news cameras, my family scattered across the country. His children kept his scriptures locked away in the attic or under the bed before their kids could find him. Pictures of him had already been taken off the wall years before. My mother never met her grandfather. He held her as a baby, but she had changed her maiden name before I was born. She grew up with tapped phones, break-ins, cars following them until dawn. Silence was an exit strategy, an escape plan. 30 years later, I asked the questions that the family had buried behind new last names and someday when you're older, until I found the man who found the box of secrets. Jerry Armstrong was a disciple of my great-grandfather. He signed his soul over to Scientology for 1 billion years. When I was 3 years old, this believer was on a secret base, shredding millions of documents before the FBI could find them when he found 21 boxes in the attic, all the evidence of his savior's life. Notebooks, photographs, journals, medical records. He hid them from the FBI, asked his leader through secret phone drops and coded messages if he could write the book that the world could finally see his hero as he did. L. Ron gave him the green light. To this day, Jerry wonders why. Because in those boxes was the true face of my great-grandfather, the degrees he never achieved, the military exploits that never saw action, 3 decades of lies. Now in Vancouver, his fallen disciple asked me if I really want to know. By asking, I put my life in danger, my daughter's life. I need to know. This man is in my blood. I'm a writer. I need to hear the story. Where was he when I was a child? For most of it, Jerry tells me, he was on the run, then dying in a desert. While I was reading his science fiction books on lazy Sunday afternoons, my great-grandfather was only hours away in hiding, his teeth rotting, his red hair gone a straggly gray, in a trailer lined with millions of dollars in cash. Jerry watched my great-grandfather have his underlings thrown overboard. He says L. Ron didn't create a church. He invented a school for psychopaths. The man I wanted to find was already lost. He was a self-made king lording over cruise ships with pubescent teen disciples in hot pants, catching the ashes from his non-filtered cool cigarettes, who mutated into a recluse who needed every shirt washed 13 times before he could wear it. My science fiction hero spent his last 2 years in self-invented therapy, talking to the alien souls he possessed his body. He was the last believer of his own lies. We talked for 5 hours until Jerry's voice is gone. I thank him for giving me the missing chapters. He tells me to write the next one. When L. Ron Hubbard died, my family never got flowers, but Los Angeles sold out the Palladium. They announced my great-grandfather flew off to outer space to write his next story. My family wasn't invited. Now my mother reveals to me that she wrote hundreds of letters to him when she was a child. He never answered once. He's been dead for almost 3 decades, but his followers still fight to defend his ghost. My daughter rolls her eyes when I mention his name. She says she doesn't want any of her friends at school to hear about some crazy motherfucker from a long time ago. His myth is fading in my own lifetime. Blocks away from this very conference room, his shrines still stand. Movie stars and millionaires read his books like I did, but they never ask about his bloodline. You're looking at it. I'm a living epilogue, a walking piece of evidence that he can't erase. Reporters, disillusioned disciples, the brainwashed and battered hunt for the man behind the myth, and his followers accuse me of trying to steal his name, but I'm just a writer like he was. I'm the apology he could never say, a storyteller telling the only one I was given. Thank you. Talk about, but I wanted to give you kind of a weird creepy fucking gift. This is interesting. So, I've had to swear to some of my family members. Some of them have ran from L. Ron their entire life. A lot of them joined the military. They all have children. Some of them have had government jobs. L. Ron Hubbard was the last thing they ever wanted to talk about. L. Ron Jr., my grandfather, was L. Ron's oldest child. I was, his first child was my mother, and I was the first child after that. So I was really the oldest of all my cousins, and I was obsessed with L. Ron at a very early age. I remember that very tangibly, that he was my inspiration, and I found, like many of you, I'm sure, that, you know, of revealing who he was behind it was just as horrible for me to find out personally as it was to everybody else. This is also before the internet, and there were certain family members that if I would ask, they would answer, but with caution. My grandfather, L. Ron Hubbard Jr., made all of my aunts and uncles swear with his dying breath that they would not go down the same path that he did. He felt that Scientology had destroyed both him and his father. And unfortunately, that's the moral of the story of even my grandfather, is that if you tell the truth, they will still win. They still destroyed him. And that has always been the moral from my family ever since. So for me to even be here is terrifying to a lot of them. My mother cries at the idea that I too may end up in flames because I don't like bullies and I want to say the truth. And, you know, on behalf of my family, I want to apologize to everybody who suffered because of this man's agenda. It's the least I can do. But recently, I got my hands on this, which is it's pretty dark. It's pretty twisted. Some of you may or may not know this, but L. Ron Hubbard Jr., when he was dying, he wrote his own memoirs about his time with his father. It was a book he was writing called The Telling of Me. Has anybody heard of it? Oh, this will be interesting. So it's it's pretty fucked up. I feel like I just discovered this recently. In fact, most of this I just started reading in the past week. Some of it is really disturbing to me in a way because I realized that my grandfather and I probably had a lot more in common than I even realized. I wish I could have talked to him about any of this, but he was dying when I was born, and Scientology, when I learned that word, my mom would caution me to never bring it up to him. She said that, you know, he's sick, it could damage his health. A lot of people, what they don't realize about L. Ron Jr. is one of the reasons why he fought against Scientology so tenaciously, especially near the end, is his father had gone into hiding, and he knew he was dying. He was sick, incredibly sick with diabetes. He had toes amputated, and eventually his entire foot was amputated. And I remember that very vividly when I was a child. But his last child, my uncle Alex, actually has Down syndrome, and he actually became a Special Olympics weightlifting gold medal champion, so he's a badass. But a lot of it, and he even said it in interviews, is that my grandfather was actually after his father's money because he wanted to help pay for medical services for my uncle, his son, and also he had started there at the very beginning. In fact, my grandfather actually helped write the fair game protocols, and he was pretty much wrote all of that textbook. And he bullied people, harassed people, blackmailed them, beat the shit out of him. He was the thug, and he had acknowledged that. My grandfather has never been a saint. He never claimed to be. But anyways, I found this, and there's not many copies of this in existence. I'm just going to read sort of the intro of it because I think it's very revealing in revealing some of who L. Ron really was when he started at the root. Because when you start talking about black magic and sex magic, people are like, what the fuck are you talking about? It sounds absolutely outlandish and insane. However, we all know that there's evidence for this, there's documentation for it, to a point that L. Ron even had to acknowledge it and then pretend that he was actually a hidden double agent there to infiltrate a black sex magic ring. They caught him at the scene, and then he's like, well, actually, yes, I was there doing black sex magic, yes, but I was actually a government agent there to disrupt and destroy. Said the balls on this motherfucker is amazing. I mean, I've always respected his audacity, you know what I mean? I wish it wasn't at the cost of everybody else. I mean, he would have been an amazing bank robber or con man. Instead, he needed to die at God. So, so this is, I'm just going to read this. I've done some editing of it because it gets pretty insane. Just bear with me. You guys interested? You want to hear this? Scientology has made sure that this has never seen the light of day. So I'm going to just read part of it. I am the Son of God. I mislead you slightly. I mislead you slightly. I am the son of the man who creates gods. Again, I mislead you slightly. I am the son of the man who created and founded Dianetics and Scientology, which creates gods. I am the son of L. Ron Hubbard. This book is my dying declaration, my last will and testament. My father will order my death. My father does not use the term murder. He prefers to use the word suicide. He is very good with words. He is even very good at creating words. A whole new language, in fact. The language of Dianetics and Scientology. A language I shall use sparingly throughout this book, that is, if I'm able to finish it. I do have my doubts. Suicides are so easy to arrange. I humbly apologize as if you read towards the end of this book, the pages turn blank. I hope you will understand I tried. I beg your pardon if I fail to win this foot race with the devil. I do not ask or give quarter. I never have. I am a mystic and a street fighter. I know the back alleys of hell very well indeed. Who knows? I may win. I have so far. I've had good teachers. I'll give you a full tour. A tour that will cost you only a little sanity, a little reality, a queasy stomach maybe, or even an erection, an aching clitoris, a hard nipple or two. You may want to rush into the nearest church or run out of one. A few on this tour may get terminal ecstasy or permanent celibacy. I know of several hells, but the one I'm most familiar with is L. Ron Hubbard's, a thing called Dianetics and Scientology. I'm his son, and at one time, the heir to his throne. I left the orgs, as they are called, November 23rd, 1959 at 9 a.m. sharp, while I was at our headquarters in Washington, D.C., 1812 19th Street. At that time, I fully intended to entirely forget the whole sorry mess, the con, the mountains of bullshit and beast shit. I tried. I failed. I am still failing. Thank God for failure. If I had been successful, there wouldn't be this book. The branding irons have left their scars deep, strong, and very visible. Put away your Kleenex and straitjackets. I am quite healthy in mind, spirit, and soul, thank you very much. The body is a little dented here and there after almost 50 years of living, but it is still quite serviceable, thank you very much. It will see me to the finish line. I don't start anything I can't finish. If some butt-sprung candy ass from Scientology's Guardian's office, Sea Org, or Flag wants to have a go again at stopping me, let him. This whole book is being written by my hand while I sit in front of an open window with a clear line of fire. My telephone number is in the phone book. If that's not enough, I've informed them through a variety of ways that I'm writing this book. I've also written Dad through private channels telling him of my intentions. I never bluff. I also fully intend to deliver a copy of this book to my father, L. Ron Hubbard, my hand to his hand. As of this writing, he is 70 years old and will shortly turn 71 on his birthday, March 13th. That is why I'm in such a rush to get this written. I don't want him dying on me. I want him to stay very healthy and alive for several reasons. 1, I want to give him a copy of this book person to person. 2, I want him to read this book, cover to cover, every last word of it. 3, I don't want him to become a martyr. I want him and his complete history laid out before the peoples of this world, every last inch of the labyrinth exposed to public view. 4, I want to see him in court, civil and criminal. I want him in the dockets of justice. Justice by, under, and for the law. The laws of the courts of this world, not his law. I want man to judge him before he drops his body and goes sailing off with his beast. Now all these reasons sound high and mighty, noble, brave, or some other stupid nonsense. Bullshit. Why do I want to see L. Ron Hubbard hung from the scaffold in the town square under by the due process of law? Why am I writing this book? And why do I have these 4 reasons? I'll answer in 4 words. I know the man. I know the man probably better than anyone else, including his present wife and their children. To answer another way in 3 words, I was there, before the beginning. Let's get a few more things straight right off the bat. I'm a shit. Freudian in every other way you can think of. I really am a mystic and a street fighter. Just like Dad, I'll take on the whole world if I have to. And I like to. Like Dad, I walk my own path and do my own thing my way. I go for the win every time. And win. Maybe not the way other people think, but the way we think. I've been in a constant and active guerrilla war since I left my godship. At war with not just Dad, but with governments, media, and other assorted types. This army of people have a hard time with me because name change or not, I'm still a Hubbard. And just when people think they have me or Dad brought to the ground in a box, we click into the realm of the great beast. This isn't science fiction, fantasy, or insanity. Ask the thousands of people who have personally known and dealt with us personally. We are mind fuckers. Real mind fuckers in the real world. Ask the thousands who know us. They see so many images and feel so many different feelings. Their minds do flip-flops, and many have experienced a meltdown. All most people see is Dianetics and Scientology. Or me with my cloak on. Nuts, crazy, they say. Run through the whole dictionary, I say. It won't alter fact. And frankly, I really don't care if you believe me or not. I mentioned earlier about Dad ordering my death, and that I have my doubts about finishing this book. There is no doubt he will come gunning for me as in many ways and as often as possible. We have been at war for over 20 years. I don't see why I should stop now. This book, of course, will really heat up the war. When he sees I've disclosed our secret of secrets, his and his beast will come crashing through my door, taking the hinges with it. Dianetics of Scientology is the largest, oldest, and most powerful cult in existence. Period. I am one. He has hordes of people in cash. The house odds are in his favor. That's all. I've always been ready, willing, and able to put my life where my mouth is. Let's all see if he is. I hope so. I pray so. Come out, Daddy. Come out wherever you are. Pick your weapons and battleground. I have a book to give you. This book. I must really laugh. All these mortals running around trying to get you and your body in jail, in court. Ants going bananas trying to nail your hide to the barn door, stop you and shut you down. You and I both know better. As long as you have your money and your beast, you will keep on trucking. Sit out there in some land or some sea and laugh and laugh and laugh. You tried to blow me away at least twice, I know of. Plus a few other dozen tries of me using your full assortment of your private and public playbooks. At the last count, it's around 120 times in 20 years. Add that to the crap Mary Sue and other assorted goons have tried, gets a figure up around 150 times. Care to try for 151? In your last letter, you seem to backpedal a bit. Getting old? The mind fucker must be getting tired. Fucking is such work. Your only comment, when told of Quentin's death, keep my name out of it. I'm sorry, Dad, I can't accommodate you. Not this time. You are as much a part of me as I am of you. So is your son Quentin. So I shall speak for my half-brother. I will also speak for many, the legions of the damned. Your name is branded on the hearts, minds, and souls of millions of people. How can they keep your name out of it? How can they keep your name out of their shattered, broken, and torn lives, hopes, and dreams? Answer that question publicly and to my face, and I might consider it. I do not intend to replace L. Ron Hubbard. I do not intend to assume command of the junk pile. I have resisted the numerous offers, both internal and external. My gauntlet has been openly thrown. Let him and him alone pick it up. Screw mind control. The hell with expanding the conscious, raising awareness, or ballooning the spirit. Fry your lotus. Flush your robes down the toilet. Tell you what you do. Walk into an organization of Dianetics and Scientology. Spend as long as you like. That, of course, depending on the amount of cash you have. I would hazard a guess somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 grand ought to see you through the upper OT levels. That is, if your mind holds up, and body, and family, and job. It is your body, mind, soul, and spirit, and your money. Stay as long as you are able. When you decide to come back from the labyrinth, then read this. What the hell is Dianetics and Scientology? It's a religion of self. It's one man's religion, one man's labyrinth. A trip of L. Ron Hubbard's. A trip he lays on everyone else as the trip, their trip, your trip. A science fiction story he wrote and forced into reality within the heads of others by the will of L. Ron Hubbard. The self-created fantasy of one man brought to deadly reality for others by a simple word: agreement. For in L. Ron Hubbard's lexicon, reality is agreement. The agreed upon apparency of existence. The moment you start bobbing your head up and down, the moment your mind snaps into that first okay, the moment that first fine or good escapes your lips, you have started down the Scientology reality road. The reality of L. Ron Hubbard. A reality that only exists for him. Not for you, not for anyone. It's as if you're looking into a mirror and seeing not your reflection, but that of L. Ron Hubbard, commanding you to see him rather than yourself, gaining that first agreement, that first step, that first stumble that shatters a looking glass, causing your fall into his labyrinth. And now it's going to get into some weird shit. You ready for that?
Oh my God.
This is his son, by the way. This is his son. Get on the internet, look it up. He existed. All right, I don't even know how to deal with some of this shit, reading it. But I'm going to read it because according to the people in my family who have talked about Scientology, we can all talk about how I feel it's one of the most brilliantly engineered forms of mass marketing and brainwashing that's ever been in existence. They use your own paranoia against you. They own your confessions. You do electrified hypnosis. They sell you secrets on some sort of quasi-video game where you're trying to get your way to godlike status. They have so many elements that other cults have used, but they managed to encapsulate it all in one, and it all dismantles when you look at the poison in the well, which is this man. And that is how I feel that anybody who believes in LRH and the tech is that he was a liar. So if you feel the technology works, dismantle the man from it, take away the science that you think is from it, because he jacked it from all over the place, and go to the roots that were before him and look at it yourself. But one of the roots, though, that always gets buried is black magic. Okay? Aleister Crowley, Order of Golden Dawn. This is what my grandfather was trying to explain to a lot of the world, and this is where he starts using a lot of this language, and yeah, all right, I'll just read it. It's fucking crazy. Okay. What is the why of L. Ron Hubbard? Once more I shall answer in one sentence. Do what thou wilt should be the whole of the law. Now, of course, I give you here the exact quote of the man my father was quoting. My father rarely quoted anyone exactly or otherwise. He always put his own twist and turn to it to make LRH the source. LRH the creator. From my conception, in November 1933 to December 1952, what LRH drummed into my head by his magic tech was, do what you will is the whole of the law. Do only that which satisfies the will. What the hell does that mean? I didn't find out myself, consciously that is, until mid-December 1952, when my father was giving a series of lectures in Philadelphia. Not from the lectures, privately, in his hotel room. He deemed it proper at that time to openly initiate me into his sources. He gives me the first of a series of books and contests to be kept forever secret. He says to reveal them will cause me instant insanity, rip my mind apart, destroy me, he warns. Secrets, techniques, and powers he alone has conquered and harnessed. He alone has refined, improved on, applies his own engineering principles to. Science and logic, the keys. His keys to the doorway of the magic. His magic. The power. His power. The real powers of Solomon, he says. Caligula and Alice too. My past is my enemy, he says. The enemy of all. I listen with hypnotic fascination, the books, some recently republished, some over 1,200 years old, some handwritten by people other than Dad, some 5,000 years old. Gifts, he says. He is excited, fearful, and cautious. He is tense. Unimparted secrets imparted for the first time. I open the books intending only to thumb through. I am awed and amazed. I know these books. How could I? He answers, they were used to conceive you and birth you too. I've read them to you while you were asleep, drugged too, hypnotized too. For years, he says, Katie to, and Polly to, scores of women, blood and pain women, my scarlet women, he says, souls torn open, he says. I made the magic really work, he says, no more foolish rituals. I've stripped the magic to basics. Access without liability, he says, I'll teach you. Learn well, my son, for you shall take my place. Be likened unto me, fashioned none by my hand. Entering the golden dawn with me and carrying it to the stars and beyond, he says. Scarlet women of your own, he says, plenty, for they are the secret to the doorway. Use and consume, feast, drink the power through them, waste and discard them. Sex by will, he says, love by will, he says, no caring, no sharing, no feelings, none, he says. Sex and love reverse, he says. Find love through sex. Love isn't sex. Love is no good. Puts you at effect point, he says. Sex is power, he says. No, sex is the route to power, he says. The route to the doorway to power, he says. Find your scarlet woman, he says. Create your causation, he says. Make your own scarlet women, he says. Scarlet, I ask? Yes, scarlet. The blood of their bodies, the blood of their soul, he says. Release the will from bondage, he says. Bend the body, bend the mind, bend their will. Beat back the past, free your will. Unfetter the will from the past, from the future. The present is the only thing. No consequences, none answering, no guilt. Nothing is wrong in the present. The will is free, total free, he says. No feelings, no effort, pure thought, thinking alone, separated. The will postulating the will, he says. Will, sex, love, blood, door, power, will, logical, he says. The doorway of plenty, the great door of the great beast, him, you, me, our will, our power, our reality, ours alone, he says. He repeats an incantation, evokes the door opening to the realm of the beast, the great beast. I vomit, I hurt, I feel the power flood through the doorway, I shine, I am well. Father says again, never tell, or much worse will happen. I nod. He commands me to read. Father is commanded, I read. The book of the law, the sacred magic of Abra Malin, the sex magic of the 9th degree of the OTO, and later many more textbooks, many more hours of learning and practice with Dad, practice alone and use. An academy of religious arts and sciences, the academy of power, Hubbard power, personal power, not Scientology power, great power, beast power. Father was correct, very right on. It worked exactly as he said. It still does, and always will. Jesus. People mistake L. Ron Hubbard, and not much left. People mistake L. Ron Hubbard and his Scientology. They see the apparency, but not the actuality. By design, Scientology does not work as state, but as intended by its creator L. Ron Hubbard, to keep the doorway open, to remain in the realm of the great beast, to feed the hunger of the will, his will. When he has emptied the purse of man and the heart of woman, it seeks onward and outward, appetite, forever appetite. Scientology is the snare, the passion flower, the cloak of lights, the glow of power, a power always wanting, always needing, the will never satisfied. Make the labyrinth deeper, he spake. Keep the books under lock and key, he says. I do for years. I burn them as a symbolic gesture many more years later, for I am my own exorcist. L. Ron Hubbard, Jr. How many of y'all knew of any of that?
Nope.
No,
Few.
where did you find it? Where did you find it?
I will have to...
Tony's kind of wondering where the authentic...
Tony Ortega, of course Tony Ortega is wondering. Tony Ortega is one of the few people that knows about it. I love Tony Ortega, by the way. Is he there right there? Give Tony Ortega a round of applause. I will say this, is is what I love about Tony is that the guy's got balls of steel. I am a little shocked they haven't just blown his brains out at this point, because every day he is throwing a new grenade with a big old grin on his face, like, hey, catch. You know, and on a slow news week, he's like, all right, well, things are a little slow this week, so why don't we go through all the OT levels one more time? Let's just have a good old time with that. So I commend anybody and all of you that have made the sacrifices that you have to tell your stories and tell your truth. That L. Ron Jr. was also one of them as well. That what a lot of people don't understand is when my grandfather started coming out with this stuff earlier, nobody had any idea what he was talking about. This is before the internet. This is there's very few actual rare documents, and he was dead on. This is exactly what my father was. My father dealt in black magic. Those are the roots of Scientology, and he was very adamant about that. And that is also known within my family, is that all the science and the nuclear physics is just a cloak and dagger. It's just a big shell, a shield to convince you that there's technology behind it. But really at its end is that you're being interrogated and hypnotized and you're paying for it. That's literally the root. The rest is a bunch of song and dance to confuse you that you're on a path. But all you're really on a path to is being so dismantled mentally and giving up all of your sexual secrets, all of your confessions, all of your dirt, that they absolutely control you. And that's what's ironic, is that L. Ron was the one man who kept all of his secrets to himself. And it was only, I mean, one of the reasons why I think he got caught in so many of his lies is that he could just never stop lying. I mean, it's like he could have came up with a couple simple stories and just maintained that. But I mean, it was like, if you walk through the L. Ron Hubbard life exhibit, anybody been through that? So, I mean, if you have to imagine, and this is why I have compassion for Scientologists, is that if you walk through that exhibit, how are you not going to think this is one of the greatest men that have ever lived? You know, I mean, it's like, dear God, he's walking up the steps of the mountains, you know, and studying with mystics, and Indians love him, and he's a war hero, and I mean, he just seems like one of the grandest men on the planet, which I touched upon earlier in the piece. So, and then to actually find out who he really was, in many ways, is even more fascinating to me. When I first started learning out who he really was, part of me, who's just kind of a crazy rabble-rouser myself, I was like, holy shit, like black sex magic, this guy's a badass, you know what I mean? What is this crazy, you know what I mean? Why doesn't he talk about that? That's hot. Yeah, exactly. But, I mean, he had to have he basically wrote himself into the hero of all of his books. And he created an entire army and armada to defend that. And that's what's so tragic about what we see in this day, and that they're still just executing his will past the grave. But there's no carrots left. There's no more stops on the train. That's it. You know, you got OT level 8. That is it. And so they've written themselves into a wall. And David Miscavige does not have the swag of L. Ron and does not pretend to. So they have a very finite end. And the fact is that L. Ron, in many ways, you know, wrote his own fate. That he had millions of dollars, he couldn't even spend them or enjoy them because he was isolated, alone in a trailer. He was on the run from governments all over the world. His wife had gone to jail. He was a hunted man. And so that's the true story of how an outlaw ends. You know, is alone, isolated, that either you go out in a gunfight or you have to just die alone where no one can catch you. And that's the way he went. And so with a lot of what I just read, which absolutely I know not a lot of the world has seen or heard, and I brought that here for a lot of you because I think it's important to understand a lot of the roots of his psychology, and that it wasn't science. It wasn't, the guy never even fucking passed a science class. I mean, I wouldn't trust him to change my oil, you know, in my car. It's like he had no scientific background really whatsoever. But the background he did have was in hypnosis, which is one of the darkest secrets that they try to hide, and black magic, you know. And as incredulous as that sounds, that is the fact. That's the truth, and that was the root. And when my grandfather and him were cohorts, that was what he would reveal to him in their late nights. He was like, a lot of this, all this, you know, these levels, and I mean, he hadn't even gotten to like OT levels and such. That was still on the horizon. And I think that that's one of the reasons why my grandfather went to war with his father in a way, is that he saw the roots of it, and then he saw it manifest itself and just become this abomination, and then he was getting attacked with the same protocols that he had written. He very notoriously would tell his lawyers, he's like, all right, well, this is what they're going to do to me. And they're like, that's crazy. They're not going to do that. And he's like, yes, they are. He's like, why are they going to do that? And he's like, well, they're going to harass me. They're going to tap my phones. They're probably going to run me off a road. They're going to try to frame me. They're going to dig up, you know, he had this long list. And like, why the hell do you know? He's like, I wrote the fucking book. You know, he's like, they're doing exactly what I would have told them to do when I was a Scientologist. So they enacted it to him, and in many ways, they won. One of the most painful stories of L. Ron Jr. is that they forced him to recant. He was a dying man, and they bullied him and threatened his children to a point that he had to sign all of these ridiculous glowing letters about his father and take a check to shut up and die. Because once his father had died, alone in hiding, the battle, as you see from a lot of this, the ferocity that he has against his father, Scientologists and so forth. He was like, you know, one of the quotes I like to say is a lot, they're all just fingers on the same fist. And the fist is always L. Ron. All they are is they're just robots enacting the same code that's been imprinted in all of them. So in a way, I can't really blame him. I can't blame the person who's no doubt in some hotel, you know, balcony over here taking pictures of me right now, the private investigators that follow me. They're really just executing the same game plan. That's the only one that they were ever getting, which is he attack the attackers, destroy them. And the reason why is that L. Ron set that into place so that no one would ever investigate him. You don't want to have people to be like, well, why would anybody say my leaders? That he's like, just bounce it back and attack them. So then you become obsessed with the cloak and dagger, the subterfuge, the spy games, you know, the phone call box drops and the secret messages and the break-ins, and they love that. They get off on that. And it's an element of all cults is to constantly be at war. If you don't have people to attack, then you're going to start to look at what are your own roots, your own underpinnings, and you start to have doubts. You know, and the second you put a sword in someone's hand and tell them that they have a holy war, they're going to enact it with no remorse. And I feel that Jerry Armstrong said it best when he said that it's a school for psychopaths, because when you can look at it as someone becoming clear, you could alternatively view it as that you're making someone deaden to their own emotions, their own responses, to a point where if they feel that Jamie DeWolf or Peter is in the way of saving the entire planet, well, what the fuck does it matter to destroy this guy? He's a problem that just needs to be dealt with. And they view us remorselessly, you know, and that's how they deal with it. Hearing heartbreaking, tragic stories like Victoria's and so on, that's how they deal with it. They just deal with it. These are all problems that need to be buried. They just need to be smashed. And I think that my grandfather has always been a troublesome narrative for a lot of Scientology, because there were two L. Ron Hubbards that walked on this earth. And they were both Scientologists. And they worked together, and they hurt people together. And one of them left and tried to do what justice he could, but he was not a saint. He had a vendetta against his father just the same way his father had a vendetta against him. And I think that that's a story that in a way I try to continue, because in a way they're a microcosm of Scientology itself. You know, you have two people who have the same mission, the same goal, and he saw what was behind the curtain, tried to give him justice, and then found that he ended up getting crushed by the same protocols that he himself had written. So I just wanted to quickly talk about the first time that I came to Clearwater. I actually met some of you. How am I doing? You guys, attention? You good?
Amazing.
I just wanted to talk about this really quickly. So when I first came to Clearwater is because I wrote a piece about my family, a big kind of rambling rant that I read in a cafe to probably about this many people. Someone recorded it, they put it online on mp3.com, and that still existed. 2 days later, Scientologists were at my house. They immediately stalked it. 15 minutes? Okay. Great. Then maybe I'll just jump past that and I'll just tell the... Anyway. Well, I'm just going to be very, very quick. I just wanted to make this point. The first time that I came to Clearwater, I was about 22 years old. I had a chip on my shoulder because they came to my front door, so I was like, fuck you, I'm going to come to you. And somebody offered to bring me out here for the Lisa McPherson Trust. And for a benefit concert. I was very young, very scrappy, ready to fight in the street if need be. And like many of you, I'm sure, who come to Clearwater, I was absolutely horrified and by the sheer enormity of what I was facing. And I realized I'm too small to take this on. That it doesn't matter what how big I'm and tough I'm feeling. Is that this is a monster. This is out of control. This is basically taking on the mafia. And that's how I try to describe it. Is that this is not a religion. That this is a cult mafia. That's how they treat people. That's why the media is scared of him. That's why we're getting followed. We're getting tracked. I've been an atheist for a long time. Christians ain't following me into Safeway. All right. That's yourself that. They can say I'm going to hell, that's fine. We can agree to disagree. They don't have fucking private investigators telling me. So, another case is, and I realized that I was too young to fight it. And as time went on, I knew I didn't want that to be my last kind of statement against them. But a lot of people had cautioned me that don't go down this road, that it's going to devour you, it's going to destroy you, it's going to consume you. For many, and I wanted to do a lot of other things with life, contrary to a lot of my interviews. I don't talk about Ronald Hubbard all the time. I occasionally drink beer, make movies, put on circus shows, and I'm a vaudevillian showman is what I do. And so another case is, it was people though like Tony Ortega, Anonymous, the people like Mark Bunker, a lot of you people who are in this room that even gave my family and myself personally the conviction and the strength to not stop there. And because when does it end? How long do they get to bully people? How long do I have to be scared to talk about my own family and the people that they destroyed? It has to stop at some point. And you can, and it's like you want to hide behind religion. It's not a religion. You didn't even start it as a religion, and you all, as Scientologists, know that. You call it a science. If it's a science, prove it. Use fucking evidence. Use case studies like the ones that he never had. Come up with the facts that he never created, the experiments that never happened. But what ended up happening is that you all became his guinea pigs, and he's still enacting the same experiment, and he won. He got away with all of it. He socked away all that cash, but he is dead. And the game has to end. He's gone.
Amen.
Because I realize that for some of you, a lot of you, that I remember watching South Park when that episode came out, and I was like, holy shit, you know what I mean? I was like, and my friends, they saw it, and they're like looking at me with confusion. But as many of you know, that OT3 and whatnot, that was very few people knew about that. Many people who are here were very instrumental in bringing that out to the world, because that's why we focus so much on Xenu a lot. Not because it's fucking hilarious, but also, we all need to be cautious because Xenu is still alive. He's still out there. That's the thing they don't like, to in a cave somewhere. I'm gonna work on that security detail. But is that we focus on a lot because it's important for people to know where you're going on it. To know that this is what you're paying for. That's why people focus on it. You know what I mean? They're like, you want to talk about betterment of yourself and things like that. It's difficult to rationalize evil galactic tyrants on a sense of I'm trying to up my IQ and become a better person. It starts to become completely ludicrous. But seeing that on South Park, seeing Anonymous take to the streets and realizing that the whole world was catching on to the further, deeper truth of it, and meeting a lot of people from Anonymous, the people online right now who are not ex-members of Scientology, who maybe have not had a family member destroyed by it or have been threatened, just by you watching these videos, by you sharing a lot of their secrets and their truth, and just by just being pissed off that they're allowed to get away with this for so long, is what's helping a lot of us step forth and come out and chip at this mountain, even if it takes a knife and even if it takes 20,000 more years. At a certain point, if you're going to sell secrets, but we put all your secrets out on fucking Front Street, you have nothing more to sell, and people can make their own decisions. So, thanks to everybody who helped me, and even my family has been a lot more supportive. Believe me, they were terrified when I first started talking out about it. my mom did not want to see a Scientologist in her life ever again, and to have them just show up at her front door as her loudmouth little fucking crazy don't give a fuck son is out there talking shit was not her favorite day of parenting. What I've tried to explain to my mom, because a lot of my family, they don't keep up, they don't want to have it haunt their lives anymore. They felt that they lost so much of their own childhoods to this creation that they don't want to have anything more to do with it. They just view it as a poison that's going to destroy anybody who touches it, whether it's for good or bad, or you're fighting it or you're defending it or whatever. That ultimately, my mother says, it's toxic. You know what I mean? It's like you just can't touch it without getting sick. And I try to explain to her, I'm like, Mom, it's different now. You know, it's different than even when I first spoke out about it. It's different because of the Tony Ortegas, the stories that I've even heard while I'm here, because you have your own evidence. Your own stories are evidence, and you allow the world to really see who they really are and then make a better decision in terms of they should even be afforded any of the respect as a religion at all, which they fucking shouldn't. So that's my view on that. I just wanted to give a thank you to everybody for that, and thank you for all that. Something in a bit, in a moment, but I just wanted to see if anybody had any questions. I guess open it up for Q&A. Pretty open book.
Will that book ever be published?
I'm going to tell you something that's evil. And I clear this with a lawyer, and Scientologists, please sue me over this shit. Let's get all this on the public transcripts. Please do it. Come after me. Is Scientology, from what I understand, bullied the rights to his memoir, and that's what I think is so tragic about even reading it. When I first read it, so I haven't even read this until literally days ago.
Wow.
On my way here, and it's so agonizing for me to read him stating that this is my last will and testament, that I'm going to hand this book to my father, I want to hold him accountable, and in the end they still won. And I've heard that one of the ways that they did was sources have told me that one of the ways that they did that is they took him into a side room in one of his court cases. They laid out pictures of all of my aunts and uncles playing alone on playgrounds, walking home from school, and they said, if you want to keep fighting, at what cost? And they said, if you want to go down this road, there's going to be consequences. And that was when he backed out of the book, Messiah Madman. That's when he took his name off that, and he was sick. He felt that especially once his father had died, that his vendetta, in a way, ended with them. And the last thing he wanted to do he felt was like go to war with basic just robots of his father, who, you know, he just viewed as just game pieces. You know what I mean? It almost felt like below him to continue to battle these people who were like fighting for his father when his father was gone. They had a very personal, intense relationship, and I think it's one of the reasons why Scientology wants to bury the narrative of my grandfather so deeply, because it's so uncomfortable for them to talk about. If you go on the L. Ron Hubbard Life exhibit, the first time I went there, he didn't even exist. And I don't know if that's because my tour guide was lied to, or if it's just written out of the narrative. But that's what dictators do. That's what Stalin did. That's what you do, is you rewrite the narrative and you take a razor blade to any chapter that is going to throw light on you. I mean, if this man was past OT level 8, if, dear God, someone could actually transcend the powers of Tom Cruise and Kirstie Alley, if you can dare get that height of spiritual power, this man surely should have been it. And one of his sons committed suicide. His other son hated him and fought him bitterly all the way to the very end, and that's documented. There's absolutely no illusion about that. And if there's anybody watching this that doubts anything I'm saying, question everything. You don't have to believe me. I don't want you to believe me. Go and investigate. Find out yourself. There's a long track record to it. Question everything and everyone and find out for yourself. So, another question. I often root for the bad guys in movies. You know what I mean? I never really had any interest in being a heroic individual or whatnot. I definitely don't view in moral absolutes, you know, and anything like that. And I think especially growing up such devout Christian, that a lot of that was a backlash in a way against that. for the rest of my life. Anybody who knows me knows that I'm absolutely a believer in moral gray shades. So especially in my early 20s, that I viewed L. Ron as, in some ways, a dark inspiration, because to me it was a model that you can smash your name and your will into anything. And when I started out as an artist and I started putting on my own shows, I started creating my own world, an alternative narrative to the lifestyle that people hand you. And when you're an artist, in a way, you're sort of creating your own life. And you have to believe in yourself. You have to have this sort of fanaticism in yourself that I can do this, that I don't have to just, you know, work at Walmart, get married, have some kids, and fucking die. You know what I mean? That you can transcend that. And L. Ron, in a way, was my model for that. You know, people are like, I don't know if you can start a show in this town. I'm like, I could fucking start a cult if I wanted to, because, you know, I was like, you can clearly do anything you want in this world. It depends on, like, he showed that there are no rules. You know what I mean? He's like, I don't need science or case studies or anything. You know, he's like, I don't even need to have a biography that makes fucking sense. You know what I mean? And it's like, just through sheer charisma and bravado, and just I've always been really fascinated by who was L. Ron really on a day-to-day basis, because you have to imagine how exhausting it must be as a pathological liar, that this man was never out of the zone, that on morning, noon, and night he had lies tumbling out, and he was grinning the whole time and having a good game with it, and he was playing a game. And I think to a lot of people who like to crack, you know, casually throwing around that he's a cult leader, it must have been crazy. Right? Well, that sounds great, but that's a very broad term. And as being his actual descendant and being a bit of a wild kind of maniac in my years, along with my brother, who actually looks almost dead on like L. Ron. He has the same red neon hair. You'll never catch him talking about Scientology, but and he won't even watch this video, so I can talk about it. Is that whatever L. Ron had, I see it. Whatever he had mentally, I see it in my brother. He has the same mania. He had the same red hair. He went bald at the same age. And he's been manic his entire life. And I see it in a physical genetic incarnation in my brother constantly. Like I don't even know what is totally wrong with him. He's definitely off, and he would even admit that. And but I mean, he has a constant mania. A lot of people, when they meet him, they think he's on drugs, and he's not. You know what I mean? He just talks that way. And it's like if you took the L. Ron, you know, gene pool and you just put it in 2 other kids, you know, you're going to get Jamie DeWolf and my brother. And in some ways, I felt like I was kind of a half hybrid of it. But my brother definitely has the L. Ron dose to the hilt. And I've always wanted to know, who was L. Ron really? You know what I mean? Because some people, oh, he believes in aliens and shit, and they think he must be schizophrenic. That's not true. You can't run an empire and be schizophrenic. That's not how it works. You know, and I asked other people, it's like, well, was he manic depressive? When was he depressive then? You know, when was he manic? At what point was he psychotic? You know, these are things that, what point was he psychotic, and what part was a hustle, and what part was just his mythology that he had created around himself, and just being a science fiction writer. You're creating, you know, insane universes on a regular basis at the drop of a hat. So that, to me, personally, I'm very invested in wanting to find that. And this is kind of my question to the world. If anybody knew L. Ron Hubbard personally, I would like to talk to you, because I want to know who he really was in your personal experiences, past his hustle, past his game plan. I want to know who was the man behind the God that he created. So, yes?
Thank you.
Your family story is very much like a Greek tragedy. Have you, as an entertainer and an artist, have you ever thought of writing a play or a one-man show or doing something to really delve into that kind of Greek tragedy aspect of your family?
Yes, he is asking, he says that my family story is very much like a Greek tragedy, and have I thought about creating another work of art or something like that about it? Yes. And we'll talk more about that when the cameras are off. Yes?
There's all these conspiracy theories of how L. Ron died. You know, the psychs got a hold of him, the government got a hold of him, you know, he had visceral injections in him, and, you know, just all these different theories. So how do you think he actually died, or does your family know, or is it just this great, you know, it's just open for conspiracy?
She asked for the internet, she asks, that there's been a lot of conspiracy theories on how L. Ron Hubbard died, and does my family have a theory as to what that is, right? I definitely do not think that the government killed him. The government wanted him, but they wanted him in court. They wanted a microphone in his face. They wanted him to testify. They wanted to get some answers from him. I mean, he was one of the only people I can think of that had nearly every branch of the United States government have open investigations in this one guy. That's pretty impressive, you know what I mean? Pretty sure John Gotti didn't even get there, you know what I mean? He just had like one or two, but I mean, they had, everybody wanted to talk to him, and he knew that. That's why he left. And that's what a lot of people, you know, minus from his biography is that he ran. That he did not stand in court, he did not stand in the spotlight, he did not answer the charges, and that is cowardice. That if you really believe that you alone have created the one gift to save humanity, but you're not going to answer for it when the heat is on, that's cowardice. In terms of what happened and how he died in the end, I don't know what my grandfather's theory was on it. I know that in the end he felt that L. Ron had lost it. He felt that his father had become more and more incoherent, and more had lost his control, his own grasp on his own reality. From the testaments from a lot of people who knew L. Ron near the end, that they've kind of attested that to the same. In fact, some ways that's what I think is so haunting about the end of him, is just imagining this guy whose teeth rot, he has this empire, is getting $1 million in a week, brought to him, and he's lining his trailer with cash, just sitting there alone talking to these disembodied alien souls. That's tragic. You know what I mean? That he's not ending his life in a mansion. You know, he's not swimming in a pool like throwing money and burning it. That he's on the run and hiding. And I really believe at that point that he had succumbed to his own fantasies. Whether or not Scientologists at that point decided that he needed to be taken out so that they could finally, you know, get their own grip on it and re-steer the course, I don't know. I really don't know. My family doesn't. They don't have a verdict on that, but it's suspicious. Any other questions? No?
Oh, I have one.
Yes.
Has your curiosity extended to acquiring or studying any of these books mentioned in the manuscript?
Wow. Yes, wants to know if I am interested in acquiring or studying any of these books mentioned by L. Ron Hubbard Jr., the Aleister Crowley texts and stuff like that. Yes. Well, I mean, when I was younger, I was certainly more interested and intrigued. I read a fair amount about Aleister Crowley when I was younger, even without knowing the connection to L. Ron myself. I had a Order of Golden Dawn, like Thoth tarot deck and shit like that. Growing up Baptist Christian in a family that created their own religion has made me pretty goddamn skeptical of about anything that anybody tells me. So someone's telling me they got magic or they cracked or unlocked some secrets. To me, I try to boil everything down to the actual mechanics of it. Okay, I'm pretty sure this involves hypnosis and sex and talking to yourself in a robotic kind of programming language, and I think that's what's more important to focus on is the mechanics of it. That there's a whole lot of ways to put yourself in a trance so you can believe in anything you want. And I felt that a lot of what Aleister Crowley and such like that has also done. It's pretty hard for me to believe in about anything, and I'm pretty content to not care. For many years of my life, I was obsessed with Christianity, and the Antichrist was my boogeyman, and my closet. I was terrified of Armageddon and the apocalypse on a regular daily basis. I had a Bible camp where we went and stood in the field and waited for the rapture to happen at midnight, and just sort of awkwardly walked back to our tent. And now I've literally gotten to a point where I feel like even atheist is almost too strong of a word. It's like I got to a point of almost just complete apathy in terms of caring at all, because I feel like any one person who thinks that they alone have established an answer, if someone's handing you or selling you an answer, for you to sacrifice some part of your own belief system as an answer, is pretty suspect. So, yeah, no. Any other questions? Yes.
Yeah, you read Hugh Irvin's study of L. Ron Hubbard's involvement with Aleister Crowley and the occult?
I think I've read parts of it, but I would like to read it in its entirety, if possible. I think that's one of the juiciest eras of L. Ron's life that really needs to be talked about a lot more, and I think a lot of people shy away from it because it's so preposterous. I know in the first draft of the God and the Man piece that became pretty well known on YouTube, that I had references to black magic, and then I was like, this is just crazy. Nobody's gonna. I cut it out. So I was like, this is not something people understand. They understand money, they understand greed, they understand surveillance and power and control. You start throwing in black sex magic and people's eyes roll. They're like, what are you talking? You know what I mean? So, yes.
Just for the internet, can you repeat the name of the
Yeah.
book that he just asked you about?
I'm sorry, could you say it for me one more time?
It's Aleister Crowley's, or Hugh Urban's.
Hugh Urban's.
He's a theologian at a university in Ohio. I think it's Ohio State.
Uh-huh.
He did a study of L. Ron Hubbard's involvement with Aleister Crowley and the occult.
Yeah.
I have the paper at home. I got a PDF of it, actually.
I'd love to see it. Hugh Urban did a study on the relationship between Aleister Crowley and L. Ron Hubbard, is what he's saying, and definitely to look into it, especially hearing some of the L. Ron Jr. stuff. Yes?
For those that are interested, the book of Abramelin has been scanned and is available on Script D.
Okay, the Endless Trouble Starter, Arnie over here, has the book of what is it?
Abramelin.
Abramelin, which was mentioned in L. Ron Jr.'s memoir, and that is online on Arnie's site.
It's not on my site.
It's not on his site, it's around.
Script D. Is it Script D?
Scripty, it can be found.
Archive. It comes up in Google. If you put in Abramelin full text.
You can find it, it's online. Get your hunt on.
It's
Yes.
a strange read.
Jimmy, what's your message to David Miscavige, Tom Cruise, John Travolta?
That's my message.
Tom Cruise is at the back.
What is my? He asked everyone from the UK and Ireland are just some badass rock stars, by the way. I'm saving this whole fest. John Sweeney asked, what would be a message I would say to John Travolta, Tom Cruise, and David Miscavige? I would say to all of you, it's a sinking ship. That we know that they own your confessions, we know you own your secrets, that I really don't think that there's anything that you have that they are hiding for you that is as dangerous to your career as going down in history of signing off on a name of a very destructive, monstrous force of the last century. And that by your complicity in a criminal organization that continues to destroy lives and subjugate people to their will, and the fact that you cannot answer questions about your own theology on camera, and that you continue to duck and evade your own teachings being revealed to the rest of the public to show you that there's something to hide. If someone's going to ask you about Xenu and you are well aware of who the hell he is and you've been talking to alien souls, you should be able to use your power and celebrity if you really think you're saving the world to talk about it. Why keep these things secret? How much does salvation really cost? That just because you're a celebrity does not make you important. In fact, if you're an actor, all you are is a professional liar. That is it. And I love actors, I'm a theater guy myself, but it doesn't make you heroic, it doesn't make your opinion matter at all. And that Scientology and L. Ron was very brilliant in terms of making you ambassadors to the public and giving it legitimacy, but the curtain and the gig is up. You can drop the role. As for David Miscavige, what do you say to David Miscavige?
I got a few things.
To David Miscavige, to quote a line from Breaking Bad, you can kill Jesse James, but you ain't no Jesse James. So, yeah. All right, good? Any other questions? No? Okay, so go ahead. You're going to do that, Dale? Can you shut that off?
Okay. Can you announce what we're doing so the internet people don't think we're just
Yeah, so, well, anybody else, did you already do it?
No.
Okay, so if you want to find out more, I'm at jamiedewolf.com. I'm always interested in talking to people more about it and helping in any way that I can. And thank you for all of you that have watched any or all part of this, and keep up the fight. Thanks.